The sky above the planet Zaireth exploded with light as thousands of warships crossed through its orbit. The Empress had ordered the skies cleared for her coronation, but the invaders ignored the command. Strange metal ships with sharp wings and red lights formed a blockade around the peaceful world. Inside the Grand Palace, the Empress stood tall on the ceremonial steps, unaware that fate was about to change everything. Far away in deep space, a lone human pilot named Cade swerved through debris fields. He had been fleeing a battle his crew had lost hours ago. His ship was damaged, bleeding sparks and smoke, and he could barely hold the controls steady. When his navigation system locked onto a habitable planet nearby, he didn't know he was heading straight into royal territory. Zaireth had never seen a human before. Their ancient histories mentioned creatures from the blue world, but none believed they were real. Now in the middle of the Empress's most sacred event, a flaming object crashed from the sky like a fallen star. The royal guards panicked as fire streaked through the clouds and thunder shook the palace floor. Cade's ship tore through the air and smashed into the center plaza, right before the Empress's throne. Dust and metal shards scattered like broken jewels. The Empress rose, her eyes glowing like emerald fire, and stepped forward through the silence. Her guards shouted warnings, but she raised her hand to stop them. Something deep in her blood told her this was no accident. Smoke hissed from the wreckage. Cade crawled out, coughing and covered in ash, collapsing before the alien throne. He didn't know where he was or what he had just interrupted. His eyes met hers for the first time, and in that instant, she froze. Her mind echoed with a forgotten prophecy passed down through generations, of a sky flame and a foreign soul who would change everything. The high priest gasped. They recognized the signs etched on his torn armor, symbols long forbidden from speech. The Empress didn't speak, but her expression shifted. She stepped closer, her bare feet brushing across marble as her robe whispered behind her. The crowd watched in complete silence as she knelt beside him, ignoring every law of the throne. Cade's breathing was shallow. The Empress reached out. Her hand, her touch glowing as green light wrapped around his broken body. Whispers filled the hall like wind through stone. The old priests trembled. The prophecy was real. Her hand hovered over his chest, and her voice, calm and powerful, asked one thing, something that had not been spoken in centuries. Is it alive? The silence after her question held more weight than any speech the Empress had ever made. Her hand still hovered above the strange man's chest, glowing with soft green light. The human was unconscious, but his chest rose slowly. The royal guards stayed frozen in place. No one dared interrupt what felt like the touch of prophecy itself. Cade's body was broken, but not beyond saving. The Empress could feel something strange in his energy. It was not like her people. His heartbeat was steady, but unfamiliar. His blood held something wild, something ancient. She had never touched anything like it. It pulsed with power and something else, something that answered her own inner storm. Behind her, the priests began chanting, not loud, but in voices old and trembling. The high priest stepped forward holding a scroll wrapped in silver thread. He bowed low and opened the sacred text, his hands shaking. The words inside spoke of fire, sky, and a mate not born of their world. The Empress turned to look at him, her eyes sharper than any blade. "Your Majesty," he said, barely breathing. "The human bears the markings of the one foretold. The star-born flame, he is the one destined to awaken the bound union." His voice cracked, and the crowd behind him gasped. The bound union was no myth. It was the deepest secret of their bloodline. One that no ruler dared test until now. Cade stirred. His eyes flickered open, blinking against the palace lights. The first thing he saw was her face. He didn't know who she was or where he had landed, but his heart skipped a beat. Her presence was overwhelming. Not just her beauty, but something deeper, something that pulled at the threads of his soul. The Empress leaned closer. Her voice was calm but carried power. You are not from this world, yet you arrive in the hour of coronation. Do you understand where you are? Cade tried to speak, but pain choked his words. He reached up and touched her hand. It was warm and steady. A shiver ran through her spine, but she didn't pull away. The court was silent. All eyes were on them. The Empress helped Cade sit up, her hand supporting his back. Her throne sat empty behind her, but no one dared question her movements. She was the Empress, and her choices were final. Still, the meaning of this moment was clear to everyone watching. This was not just coincidence. It was fate. Cade glanced around at the towering hall. Strange statues lined the walls, glowing faintly. Dozens of alien nobles stood frozen like statues. He looked down at himself and saw the damage on his suit. Then he looked up again into her eyes. I crashed, he whispered. Did I ruin something important? Her lips curved slightly, not in anger, but curiosity. You arrived in the middle of my coronation, she said. And you may have fulfilled an ancient omen in doing so. Cade blinked again, unsure if he was hearing things right. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. The Empress stood slowly and faced the gathering of nobles, priests, and generals. Her voice rang clear and without fear. This human is under my protection, she declared. No blade, no word, no law shall touch him. Her voice echoed like thunder in the throne room. The guards lowered their weapons. The nobles stepped back. The high priest clutched his scroll like a lifeline. The ancient text had not been read aloud for 1,000 years. A single tremor shook the ground. The pillars groaned. From beneath the palace floor, something old stirred. The Empress looked down. Her eyes narrowed. The priests went pale as the ancient stone beneath their feet glowed with forgotten sigils. The coronation had truly awakened. Something greater than them all. The human had arrived as a stranger. But now he was something else. Not a threat, not a prisoner. A key, a trigger. A destined part of a story that had waited for its next chapter for generations. The Empress turned toward him once more. His blood still held secrets they had no names for. And her heart was no longer her own. She knelt again beside him, her hand gently cupping his cheek. Your arrival has changed everything, she whispered. And I must know what you truly are. Cade sat quietly in the healing chamber, surrounded by soft green light pulsing from the walls. His wounds had been sealed, his strength slowly returning. Alien machines hummed softly as they worked around him. Yet the strangest feeling was not the tech or the pain, it was her voice still echoing in his mind. The Empress stood outside, watching through the transparent wall. Her fingers were laced in front of her, calm but tight. She had made a choice, and now her entire empire waited to see what would come of it. Some feared betrayal of tradition. Others whispered of prophecy. But none could look at the human without feeling something shift. High General Syrinx, a loyal warrior of the throne, stepped beside her. His armor gleamed beneath the golden light. This choice, he said, will divide the noble houses. She nodded once but didn't look away. Let them be divided, she replied. I serve truth, and I feel it in him. The Union recognizes something we do not. Inside, Cade reached up and touched his chest. There was no scar, no pain, just warmth. He breathed deeply. Everything felt unfamiliar, but the fear inside him had faded. He remembered falling, remembered the chaos, and then her face. He had crashed into something far bigger than war. He had crashed into destiny. The Empress finally entered the room, her presence quiet yet undeniable. The machines fell silent as she approached. Cade looked up at her, still unsure if she was real. Her long dark hair flowed behind her, her emerald skin glowing with power. But it was her eyes piercing and calm that held him frozen in place. You are awake, she said. Her voice was smooth, steady, and strange. "Do you feel different?" Cade hesitated, then nodded slowly. "I feel connected, like something is watching me, like I'm being pulled into something I can't see." She studied him, then stepped closer and placed her hand above his heart. "The bound union," she whispered. "It does not care for laws or bloodlines. It chooses what the stars command. And it chose you." Cade swallowed hard. "I'm just a pilot," he said. "I don't know anything about unions or empires." Her lips curled slightly. "Neither did I when I was chosen. But I obeyed. And now I rule." A low chime echoed through the chamber. A tall figure entered, dressed in ceremonial black. It was the Oracle of Zyreth. His eyes were blindfolded, yet his steps were sure. He carried a sphere glowing with threads of golden light. The Empress nodded to him, and he held the sphere out toward Cade. "This artifact was made before time was written," he said. "It reacts only to the chosen. If you are not the one, it will stay dark." Cade looked at the sphere, unsure what to do. The Empress gave him a slight nod. Slowly, he reached out and touched it with his fingertips. Light exploded through the chamber. The walls shimmered. The Oracle gasped. The Empress stepped back as the golden threads danced around Cade's hand. The sphere pulsed like a heartbeat, and a whisper echoed through the room. One word, spoken in an ancient tongue neither of them fully understood. Together, the Oracle dropped to one knee. The Empress froze, eyes wide. Cade pulled his hand back and the light faded. But something had changed. The prophecy had responded. The ancient bond had stirred. The Empress turned to her guards, her voice now sharp and commanding. "Prepare the council. The decision has been made." Outside, the sky turned darker. Storms swirled over distant mountains. In the far temples, bells rang for the first time. In centuries, birds fled the trees and animals fell silent. The world itself felt the pull of something old being awakened. The Empress's destiny was no longer hers alone. Cade looked at her as the guards led him from the chamber. "I don't understand any of this," he said softly. She looked back over her shoulder, her expression unreadable. "You will," she answered, "because fate never asks permission. It only demands belief." The royal council gathered in the grand spire, a towering room carved from living crystal. Each noble sat in a circle, robes flowing like waterfalls of color. High General Sarek stood to one side, armored and silent. The Empress entered with her head high and her gaze steady. Behind her walked Cade, dressed now in ceremonial white. The council stared at the human with a mix of fear, curiosity, and resistance. Some narrowed their eyes, some whispered into hidden comes. The Empress raised her hand, and silence fell like a stone. She turned toward them, her voice rising with quiet strength. "You know what the omens have shown." You saw the relic respond. "He is the chosen." A noble with silver eyes stood. "Lady Zarella of the Flame Houses." She bowed respectfully before speaking. "With respect, Your Radiance, the human is a stranger. Our laws forbid union with outsiders. Prophecy or not, such a bond risks the foundation of Zyreth's rule." Her voice was calm, but her words were sharp as knives. The Empress did not flinch. "The prophecy is older than your house. The bound union chooses without asking permission. It is written in blood and time. I will not deny what has been shown. Before the stars themselves." Her tone silenced every voice but one, the Oracle, who stepped into the circle holding the golden sphere again. "The signs are clear," he said. "We do not face a question of approval. We face a command from fate. This human is not here by chance. His blood sings with the bond. To reject him is to deny the will of the ancients." The sphere pulsed softly in his hands, casting light across Cade's face. Cade felt every eye burning into him. He didn't want a throne, a prophecy, or an empire. He only wanted to survive. But now he stood at the center of a storm no weapon could stop. He cleared his throat and stepped forward. "I never asked for this," he said. "But I won't run from it either." The Empress looked at him, her expression softening for a moment. Then she turned back to the council. "You may debate law and lineage," she said, "but I am the Empress. I make the law, and I claim him as my destined mate." Her words struck like thunder through the chamber. Some nobles stood in protest, but none dared cross her. Lady Zarella's voice cracked as she stepped back. "Then so be it," she muttered, "but the consequences will be yours to bear." She turned and walked from the chamber, her guards following. The rest of the council watched in tense silence. The Empress looked up, not with defiance, but with peace. That night, the stars above Zereth shifted. The great constellation, long unchanged, glowed with a new light. Astronomers cried out in disbelief. Priests wept in their temples. Across the empire, people whispered of the ancient signs returning. The story of the human had already begun to spread across the stars. Cade stood alone in a chamber overlooking the palace gardens. The sky stretched endless beyond the glass, filled with colors he had never seen before. He wondered what his crew would say if they could see him now. He wasn't a soldier anymore. He wasn't even a refugee. He was something unknown, and it terrified him. The Empress entered quietly, her footsteps soft on the stone. She stood beside him, silent for a moment. Then she said, "You did well. They won't all accept it. But they will obey." Cade turned to her. "What if I fail you?" She met his gaze, calm and certain. "Then we fail together." "But I don't believe you will." Their hands touched. Not by ritual, not by command, but by something natural and unspoken. The energy between them pulsed again, soft and warm. The bound union was not just prophecy, it was real. It breathed through them like fire through wind. The Empress whispered a word in her language that meant forever. In the deepest archives of the palace, a hidden device blinked to life. Buried in crystal and sealed by oath, it had waited for centuries. Now, its core glowed. Far across space, something dark stirred. The prophecy had not only awakened destiny, it had awakened danger. Because when ancient power rises, something always rises to challenge it. Beneath the palace, inside the Vault of Origins, ancient machinery awakened with soft metallic groans. Forgotten by time, it responded to the ripple of prophecy now fulfilled. Symbols along the curved walls lit up in green and gold, casting shifting shadows. In the center, a sealed pod pulsed as if breathing for the first time in centuries. High General Sarek stood in front of the device, his jaw tight. The Empress had ordered it watched, but no one had expected movement. The guard commander beside him shifted uneasily. "Is it reacting to the human?" he asked. Sarek didn't answer at first. Then he whispered, "It was never supposed to activate." Not unless the bond was real. Above them, the Empress sat with Cade in the Hall of Stars. The ceiling was open to the night, revealing the great constellation now reshaped by fate. Her voice was quiet, but firm. "The vault has stirred. Its sensors detected your arrival." And something else, an echo from deep space. "Something ancient is coming this way." Cade listened, arms folded. "Is it an enemy?" he asked. The Empress shook her head slightly. "I don't know, but the vault doesn't lie. When it awakens, something always follows. In every cycle of the bonded union, balance must be restored. Which means something out there believes you are a threat." She turned her eyes toward the sky. "And if you are the flame," she said, "then something out there is the shadow." Cade stepped closer, watching the glow of starlight dance across her skin. "Then we should prepare. I didn't come here to bring destruction. But I won't let anyone tear this place down because of me." Down in the vault, the pod's outer shell cracked open. A figure lay inside, its body wrapped in dark vines and bone-like armor. Its eyes snapped open, bright red and hollow. The guards fell back in shock. The oracle appeared beside Syrinx, gasping. "It's a herald," he said. "A warning. The true danger comes next." Within hours, the palace buzzed with preparation. Defense grids were activated. Ancient weapons stored for generations were brought to the surface. Generals from across the Zareth system arrived for an emergency summit. Ships took formation in the sky. But none knew what shape the enemy would take. Cade stood on a platform as the Empress addressed the gathered military. Her voice carried across the courtyard. "This human is not our enemy. He is the bonded one. And if darkness comes, he will fight beside us." Not as an outsider, but as a guardian of Zareth, Cade stepped forward. "I didn't come here by choice," he said. "But I won't run from what I've become. If the stars chose me, then I'll stand with you. I've seen war, I've seen death. And I'll face whatever comes through those skies to protect this world." The soldiers responded with a unified cry. The Empress placed her hand on Cade's shoulder, her face unreadable. But in her eyes, there was pride. The connection between them had grown, not just by prophecy, but by shared belief. He was not just the chosen, he was becoming one of them. Far beyond Zareth, a ripple spread through space. In the void between systems, a colossal vessel drifted like a dead god. Its surface was black metal covered in glowing scars. Inside, a being with no face and no voice stirred from a throne of bone. It had sensed the Union's activation. It had waited for this moment across time. The creature extended its arm, and the ship responded. Thousands of smaller crafts detached, their wings sharp and glimmering. The vessel changed direction, aligning itself toward Zareth. It did not rush. It did not shout. It only moved forward with perfect certainty. Balance demanded its arrival. Back. In the palace, the Empress and Cade returned to the private chambers. The candles flickered gently. "I never asked for this," Cade said. "But now that I'm in it, I can't imagine walking away." She moved closer, her voice soft. "Neither can I. We're bound by more than blood now. We're bound by fate." Their fingers laced together, and in that quiet space, the energy between them pulsed again. The bond was alive. And in the silence, they both knew the same thing. The enemy was already on its way. The warning alarms howled across the palace as the sky darkened with incoming vessels. Every scanner confirmed it. Thousands of hostile crafts breaking through the edge of the system. Their energy signatures were ancient and aggressive. Zareth's defenses lit up in response, but the enemy did not fire. Not yet. The Empress stood at the command balcony, robes flowing in the wind. Her eyes locked on the distant wave of invaders. Behind her, the council gathered in silence. Beside her stood Cade, now wearing ceremonial armor shaped to fit his human form. The mark of the bond shimmered over his chest in pale gold. General Syrinx approached quickly, his expression grim. Their leader has not identified itself, but they sent a message. A single word translated from ancient Zarian script. The Empress raised an eyebrow. "What word?" Syrinx replied without blinking. "Return." Cade stepped forward. "Return what?" he asked. The oracle answered from the back. "They believe the bond belongs to them. That the power you now hold was stolen. They believe the flame was meant for their throne, not ours." The Empress clenched her fist. "Then they have misunderstood history." The alien fleet remained still, forming a ring in the upper atmosphere. From within the largest ship, a pulse of dark light burst into space. The pulse didn't harm, it summoned. A voice filled the minds of every being on Zareth. Cold, hollow, absolute. Surrender the bonded. One, or fall beneath the balance. Cade winced at the voice. It felt like ice crawling into his skull. He looked to the Empress, but she didn't flinch. Her voice cut through the silence. "I will answer them myself." She activated the throne's transmission crystal and spoke without fear. Zeereth does not surrender. Come if you dare. The skies burned within minutes. The invaders descended. In black waves, energy blasts rained down across the shield lines. Zeereth's defense towers answered with plasma and light. The palace shook as the first wave hit the capital's perimeter. But this was not an invasion. It was a trial of survival. Cade and the Empress moved to the front lines together. She wore ancient battle armor forged by generations of warrior queens. He carried a weapon born from human design, retrofitted with Zeereth crystal cores. Side by side, they entered the battlefield without hesitation. They were no longer two worlds, they were one. The Herald, awakened from the vault, led the first defense strike. Its power crackled through the sky as it slammed into enemy ships. Lightning burst from its arms, cutting through the invaders like blades. The creature fought not for orders, but for balance. It fought to protect what had been awakened. In the chaos of war, the enemy revealed their leader. A towering being of dark bone and flickering smoke descended upon the battlefield. Its voice echoed like thunder without sound. It carried no weapon, it needed none. The ground itself cracked beneath its feet as it moved toward the palace. The Empress met it at the steps of the throne plaza. The sky above them roared with war. Below, silence fell. The creature stared at her, then at Cade. "You are not meant to hold the flame," it said. "He was never yours. Give him to us, and we leave your world untouched." Cade stepped forward. Before she could speak, "I wasn't meant to survive that crash either, but I did. I wasn't meant to find her, but I did. And now, I'm not giving up either one." His voice was steady. His fear burned away in the face of truth. He didn't run from destiny anymore. The creature lifted a hand, preparing to strike. The Empress raised hers as well, energy swirling in her palm. But before the blow landed, something blazed between them. The bond ignited with a force neither expected. A column of golden light shot into the sky. It was not just connection, it was defiance. The invaders paused as the light reached beyond the clouds. The throne itself responded, releasing hidden power stored since the Empire's birth. Every Zeereth warrior felt the surge. Even the stars seemed to pulse with the rhythm of the bond. The enemy leaders staggered, unbalanced for the first time. "The pulse 'tis the..." Empress reached out and took Cade's hand. Their eyes met. No words passed between them. None were needed. Together, they walked forward through the storm, flames rising at their feet. Because love bound by fate doesn't bow, it rises. The battlefield glowed under the light of the bond as the enemy forces paused. The sky above pulsed with a golden beam rising from the hearts of Cade and the Empress. Even the darkest ships held their fire. Across the land, both sides stood frozen. Caught in a moment no weapon could explain. The Empress felt the power running through her veins like liquid light. Her heart pounded in rhythm with the pulse from Cade's presence. This was no longer ancient prophecy alone. It was living, breathing truth, and the throne recognized it. Its ancient roots trembled beneath her feet. The enemy leader raised its hand again, slower this time. Its hollow eyes glowed red as it scanned the light between them. "The Union should not burn this bright," it said. "It has never been. This strong, something is wrong." But its voice shook with uncertainty instead of power. Cade stepped forward without fear. Maybe the stories were never complete. Maybe the bond was always meant to grow stronger. Maybe it just needed a reason. He turned to the Empress, and the light between them surged. "And we gave it one." Together, the enemy staggered, retreating 2 steps. Its dark soldiers began to lose their shape, flickering in the light. The sky trembled. Ships turned slowly as if uncertain. The herald roared from the cliffs, releasing another wave of energy. The bond was no longer defense, it was dominance, within. The palace, the oracle stared at the glowing maps. Lines of fate twisted and untwisted across the sky. "They've done it," he whispered. "They've awakened the full power of the throne. It no longer protects only bloodlines. It protects truth. It protects love." The Empress rose above the battlefield, lifted by the energy pulsing through her. Her voice carried across the planet. "Zyreth does not bend. And the bond you sought to control has chosen freely. Leave now, or face the justice of a power beyond time." The enemy leader looked to the stars, searching for guidance. But none came. Its army began to crumble like smoke in the wind. The herald leapt into the air and struck the final blow, sending a shockwave across the battlefield. The leader let out a wordless sound and vanished in a cloud of black light. The skies cleared as quickly as they had darkened. Ships that once loomed above now drifted powerlessly. The invaders' engines went dark. The royal defense grid stood ready, but no counterstrike was needed. The enemy had lost not in battle, but in spirit. Cade fell to one knee, breath heavy. The bond had drained his strength, but not his resolve. The Empress rushed to his side and knelt beside him. "You did it," she said. "We did it," he answered, eyes locking onto hers. The light between them faded gently, leaving warmth in its place. Crowds gathered outside the palace, watching the skies. When the light dimmed, they erupted in celebration. Bells rang through the capital. Children danced in the streets. The people of Zyreth did not just see victory. They saw rebirth. A new age had begun. The royal council bowed before the Empress as she entered the chamber with Cade at her side. None questioned the bond now. None doubted the ancient signs. Even Lady Zarella lowered her gaze in acceptance. The Empress turned to them and said, "We are stronger together. From this day forward, that truth rules above all." In the Temple of Stars, the oracle returned the golden sphere to its resting place. It no longer glowed. Its purpose had been fulfilled. The flames of destiny had chosen. He whispered a blessing and sealed the chamber, knowing it would not open again for 1,000 years. That night, beneath the twin moons, the Empress stood on the highest tower. Cade joined her in silence, taking her hand. The wind danced around them, carrying the scent of blossoms and ash. The world had changed, so had they. No longer strangers, no longer separate. They looked toward the stars together, not with fear, but with hope, because when fate chooses love, the universe must bow. Asterisk, a full cycle had passed since the Battle of the Bond, and the skies of Zyreth now shimmered with peace. The warships no longer patrolled in fear, but flew in ceremonial arcs, celebrating unity. Statues of crystal and stone rose in every capital city, carved in the likeness of the Empress and the human who had changed everything. The throne had been reforged with both ancient roots and new life. Gold veins intertwined with silver and glowing human alloys. Where once only the Empress ruled alone, now a second seat rested beside hers. Not as a symbol of conquest, but of shared destiny and mutual strength. Cade adjusted to royal life slowly. His days of flight suits and emergency landings were gone. He now walked among diplomats, scholars, and warriors with equal grace. He studied the culture of Zyreth not as an outsider, but as one chosen by it. The people no longer whispered in fear, they called him by name. The Empress never left his side. She trained with him in the gardens, walked with him through the archives, and spoke of the stars as if they were old friends. In quiet moments, she would rest her head on his shoulder, speaking not of empires, but of dreams. Together, they rewrote what legacy meant. Beyond their borders, alliances grew. Other worlds, once cautious or hostile, now sent envoys to learn about the bond. Treaties were formed under the banner of the Union, not just of war, but of future. And in the depths of uncharted space, even the silent stars began to turn there. Gaze toward Zyreth. The oracle delivered his final prophecy in the Temple of Echoes. Surrounded by white fire, he spoke of a future where bloodlines meant nothing and hearts guided power. When he finished, he sealed the Book of Omens and smiled for the first time in his long life. His role had ended with peace. Cade stood atop the ceremonial tower, looking across the city he had once crash-landed into. He remembered every second, the fire, the fear, the first time he saw her. And now, everything was different. The world had changed, but so had he. He no longer asked why he was chosen. He simply accepted that he was. The Empress joined him there, wearing a gown woven from light and shadow. Her eyes, bright as ever, studied his face in silence. "You've adapted well," she said softly. He chuckled. "I still don't understand the food names, but I'm getting there." Her laughter danced in the air like music. Below them, a gathering of young initiates trained in the open courts. Among them were both humans and Zyrians learning together. The new generation did not see difference. They saw unity. They saw purpose. The Empress and Cade watched them with pride, knowing the future was already growing. Later that night, they stood in the Chamber of Starlight, where the first Union pulse had ignited. It had been preserved, untouched since that day. The energy still shimmered faintly in the air. Cade reached out and touched the center of the floor, feeling warmth surge through his palm. "This place," he whispered, "still feels alive." The Empress nodded. "It remembers, just as we do. Just as the stars do." Their fingers touched, and the light between them glowed again, not with violence, but with promise. The bond was no longer a prophecy. It was a foundation. From the edge of space, messages arrived, requests for visits, invitations to share knowledge, even songs written in ancient codes. Zareth had become a symbol of possibility. Cade's name echoed far beyond the system, but he didn't care for titles or praise. He only cared for the hand in his. As they stood together, a voice rang from the chamber doors. A young girl with mixed features, half human, half Zyrian, stood proudly. "Mother, father," she said. "They're ready for the first lesson." The Empress smiled. Cade turned and held out his hand. Their daughter ran forward and took it. Together, the three of them walked into the next chapter. Because when the stars write your story, love becomes your legacy.